After Li Qingyue's reminder, Thor paused for a moment, then handed over Mjolnir. Captain America hesitated for a moment, then finally took the hammer. Both of them were a little stunned to see that Captain America could actually lift Mjolnir. I knew it! I knew it! The fact that you were able to shake Thor's hammer meant that you could actually lift it, you just didn't manage to. I knew it! Thor said excitedly. He's here, you three. Li Qingyue saw the three chatting so happily, and Thanos was getting closer, so he had to remind them. Only then did the three of them come to their senses and prepare for the second round. Now fully transformed, Captain America, wielding Thor's hammer, was the first to charge forward, delivering a smooth combo to Thanos. Thor thought to himself, I didn't expect this guy, with his thick eyebrows and big eyes, to actually think he couldn't lift Thor's hammer, but I didn't expect him to have already planned out his combos. Captain America had just finished fighting when Iron Man arrived. He had Friday load the Kung Fu Master Module, and with the help of powerful artificial intelligence and the performance of the armor, he managed to fight Thanos for several rounds. However, he ultimately lost to Thanos in terms of strength and was knocked away by Thanos. But this time, he did not lose consciousness. Thor charged forward again, wielding Stormbreaker. This time, Thor withstood the pressure, followed by Captain America, and then Iron Man. At first, the three of them fought cautiously, afraid of hurting their own people. As the battle dragged on, the three of them became more and more coordinated. Thanos was forced to retreat repeatedly, and seeing that he could no longer suppress the three, Thanos decisively withdrew and summoned his army. Seeing this, the three giants did not continue the pursuit, but stood still and watched the overwhelming army appear. There were only 3 of the 3 giants on their side, and together with Li Qingyue and the others, there were only 5 people. Just then, a portal appeared, but out came Constantine, the Green Doctor and others he had rescued, and Hawkeye holding the 6 Infinity Stones. Everyone gathered around the 3 leaders. "Thank you for coming." "Don't mention it, after all, you are our client," Li Qingyue said with a smile. At that moment, a voice came through everyone's earpieces. "Captain, to your left." A familiar voice rang out, and everyone looked to the side in disbelief. One spark ring after another appeared, and then Hawkeye flew out from one of them. Not only them, but the Guardians of the Galaxy and Doctor Strange appeared from another spark ring. As more and more people appeared, Thanos' expression turned grim. He then noticed the Infinity Stones in Hawkeye's hand and raised his double-edged sword, saying, "Take the Infinity Stones from me." After clearly seeing the Infinity Stone in Hawkeye's hand, Ebony Maw nodded respectfully, "Yes, sir." Thanos' vanguard army surged towards the group like a tidal wave. The 3 leaders were equally fearless and led the charge, with the others following suit. Seeing this, Li Qingyue grabbed Jill's hand and said, "Be careful, don't be reckless, understand?" "Don't worry, I'm not that stupid. That's for the best, but be careful." After saying that, Li Qingyue gently kissed Jill's lips, then conjured the angel scythe and charged forward. His speed surpassed that of the 3 giants, and he arrived at the forefront, charging directly into the enemy ranks. All that could be seen were streaks of silver-white light flashing out, and soon a large group of vanguard guards were cut in half at the waist. Li Qingyue was still not satisfied, so he charged deep into the enemy ranks, carving a path through the enemy army. At the same time, he felt the demonic bloodline within him growing stronger. Although these vanguard guards are cloned bio-weapons, they are still living beings with souls. They just don't feel pain and only know how to kill, but that doesn't negate the fact that they are biological beings. Therefore, by killing them, Li Qingyue can also evolve his bloodline. Awesome! Li Qingyue felt his demonic bloodline constantly increasing within him, and he fought even more fiercely until Black Dwarf Star appeared in front of him, holding a giant axe and blocking his way. Li Qingyue sized up the Black Dwarf Star, tilted his head, and then the angel scythe in his hand transformed into a demon axe. Black Dwarf felt an unprecedented sense of oppression through the demon axe, and gripped the axe even tighter. "Come on!" Li Qingyue shouted, then leaped high into the air, and swung the demon axe down at Black Dwarf with the force of a mountain crashing down. Black Dwarf immediately raised the axe to block, but the powerful force made him kneel on one knee, and a large crater appeared in the ground as a result. However, Black Dwarf was second only to Thanos in power, and with a forceful push, he sent Li Qingyue flying. Then the two began to fight each other, neither willing to yield to the other. At the same time, Ebony Maw led a group of vanguard guards to tear through the Human Alliance's defenses and charged straight toward Hawkeye. By the time Hawkeye realized what was happening, he was already surrounded by a group of vanguard guards. "Hand over the gem." Ebony Throat waved his hand lightly, and countless stones floated above Hawkeye, attempting to coerce him into handing over the gem. But Hawkeye, who is he? He shot an arrow directly at Ebony Maw, then rolled without looking back. Ebony Maw immediately controlled the stone to smash towards Hawkeye. Even though Hawkeye rolled, he couldn't escape Ebony Maw's control. Just as the stone was about to fall, a black figure swept past and shattered it all with his fist. "Clint, leave it to me." A deep voice sounded, and Hawkeye looked up to find that the person was Black Panther. Without hesitation, he handed him the gloves. Black Panther's vibranium armor began to glow with purple light, indicating that the armor was absorbing kinetic energy. Black Panther suddenly leaped into the Vanguard group. The moment he landed, the kinetic energy accumulated in his armor transformed into energy waves that swept out in all directions, directly blasting the Vanguard group away. Just as he was about to escape, the stones below enveloped him. He struggled to look around and discovered that this was Ebony Maw's power. "Spider-Man!" Black Panther shouted. Spider-Man, who heard the voice, rushed over to help. When he saw the situation, he immediately knew that he couldn't fight head-on. After all, Ebony Maw's abilities were quite troublesome, so he grabbed the gauntlet and left. As Spider-Man had expected, Ebony Maw released Black Panther and chased after him. Spider-Man quickly created distance, but perhaps the pressure from Ebony Maw was too intense, and Spider-Man unknowingly penetrated deep into the enemy's abdomen. "Peter, what are you doing over there?" Iron Man's anxious voice came through Spider-Man's headset. Spider-Man then looked around and realized he was surrounded by a large number of Vanguard Guardians. Left with no other option, he shouted, "Activate one-hit kill." Instantly, the eyes of his armor turned red, and then 8 spider legs grew out from behind him. As the Vanguard charged forward, the spider legs seemed to have activated auto-aiming, frantically killing the charging Vanguard. However, there were too many of them, and these Vanguard didn't know what fear was. Gradually, even the 8 spider legs couldn't kill the Vanguard that pounced on them. "Someone come to my rescue!" Spider-Man shouted. However, Spider-Man was in a place too deep, and the group didn't have time to get there. Then Constantine appeared, slamming his hands on the ground. Purple lightning refracted across the ground and then cleared the Outrider from Spider-Man's body. "Child, you can't be so reckless. Go back now." Constantine shook his head helplessly at Spider-Man. Spider-Man realized he had acted too impulsively, scratched his head, and quickly returned to their camp. At this moment, Doctor Strange, who was fighting in the crowd, seemed to sense something and turned to look at Constantine. Constantine also seemed to sense something and turned to look at Doctor Strange. The two looked at each other and saw their own reflections in each other. When Ebony Maw saw Spider-Man return, he led a group of Outriders to chase after him again. Spider-Man saw this and quickly tried to escape by shooting webs, but Ebony Maw's telekinesis was too powerful and he quickly caught up with him. Just then, a group of women descended from the sky. Pepper Potts, dressed in rescue armor, landed in front of Ebony Maw and blasted him away with a palm strike. "Kid, give us the glove, we'll return it." Pepper Potts held out her hand to Spider-Man, and just as Spider-Man was about to hand over the glove, Thanos, enraged, ordered Sanctuary 2 to bombard their area. It's important to know that the turrets mounted on Temple 2 were designed for interstellar warfare. Their power is undeniable. However, Ebony Maw had his own ulterior motives. He did not order the turrets to fire at full power, since doing so would likely result in their deaths from the barrage. Instead, he instructed the turrets to use their lowest possible power, which would allow them to withstand the attack given their physical capabilities. As the artillery fire raged, the mages unleashed their Seraphine shields to defend themselves, while the others cleverly took cover behind their shields. Among them, Constantine's Seraphine shield stood out the most, as everyone else's shields were orange or red, while his was a unique purple. Not only were they brightly colored, but they were also the largest in size, encompassing half of the battlefield. "Boss, do you need me to take care of that warship?" Constantine asked. "You'll have to ask our client if he needs it," Li Qingyue said without turning his head after slaying a group of Vanguard guards in front of him. Constantine then looked at Dr. Green, who hesitated for a moment before asking, "What price would it cost to get rid of it?" "It won't cost anything, I just need to replenish the energy I lost, is that all right?" "So what do you need to replenish your energy?" "The corpse of a living being, whether it is an animal, a human, or an alien creature, as long as it is a living being." "Okay, I understand. Please make your move." Constantine closed his eyes after hearing this, and his body gradually became ethereal. When he opened his eyes, they were filled with purple light. He roared and his body began to grow larger, becoming a humanoid figure hundreds of meters tall, composed entirely of purple energy. With a gentle wave of his hand, Temple No. 2 vanished as if it had been erased. However, Constantine only destroyed Temple 2. The Vanguard and other aliens on it all fell from the sky. Ebony Maw unleashed his full telekinetic power to cushion their fall, allowing them to land safely. After the artillery fire stopped, the group continued their attack, but Thanos' forces were too numerous, enough to overwhelm them. As Thanos and his forces launched their relentless charge, the Human Alliance suffered a crushing defeat. Not only that, but even the van capable of opening the quantum tunnel was destroyed. Seeing that the Human Alliance was on the verge of losing, Dr. Green, watching Spider-Man running with his gauntlet, shouted, "Peter!" Upon hearing this, Spider-Man immediately put on his gloves and went to Dr. Green's side. "Help me put it on," Dr. Green said. "Okay." "No." Spider-Man had just said, "Okay," when Iron Man stopped them. "Why? Your right hand isn't healed yet, and now you want to snap your fingers with your left. Who knows what problems might arise next?" Iron Man said, looking at Professor Hulk's bandaged right hand. "If we slow down now, they will be in more danger. Give it to me." Ignoring the two men's advice, Dr. Green put on the gloves on his own. Instantly, a powerful energy began to spread. He quickly knelt on one knee, put his hand on his knee for leverage, and finally snapped his fingers. As a surge of energy swept in, Thanos' army gradually turned to ashes. Thanos seemed to sense his own impending death, found a place to sit down, and slowly awaited his demise. With Thanos turning to dust, they won the war, but it was a tough one for Dr. Hulk. After snapping his fingers twice, both of his arms were charred like charcoal, but it is still possible to heal them. With the help of the mages, everyone returned to their respective homes, leaving behind only the ruins of the Avengers base. Iron Man used his financial power, and a large group of robots appeared. They began to rebuild the Avengers base and also collected all the Outriders' corpses, since Dr. Hulk would have to repay Constantine for his energy later. After everything was rebuilt, only a week had passed. During that week, not only were they busy, but the whole world was busy. After all, people who had disappeared for 5 years had returned, and governments around the world needed to make proper arrangements for them. Meanwhile, after rebuilding the base, Dr. Green found Li Qingyue and his group and extended an invitation to them. "Mr. Li, I'm here to invite you to a dinner party." "A banquet? What banquet?" It was a banquet held to celebrate defeating Thanos and resurrecting half of humanity on Earth. "Okay, we'll participate tonight." Avengers base. Li Qingyue and his group appeared dressed in suits prepared for them by Iron Man, attracting everyone's attention as soon as they entered. "You've arrived. Come in, please," said Dr. Green, dressed in a suit. "I didn't expect you to look so handsome in a suit, Dr. Green," Li Qingyue teased. Dr. Green chuckled sheepishly, then scratched his head. At that moment, Dr. Strange saw Constantine and walked towards him. "Hello, may I ask who taught you magic?" "The Ancient One, she is my teacher," Constantine said with a smile. "So that's how it is. But why haven't I seen you in this universe?" Each parallel universe is not necessarily exactly the same. After all, the universe is diverse. "You're right, but you give me a strange feeling, like a dimensional demon god, right?" Upon hearing this word, Dr. Strange paused, and the sling ring immediately appeared on his hand. However, Constantine pressed his hand down on him and said, "Don't get excited. I am indeed a dimensional lord, but I am different from the dimensional lord you imagine." Constantine then took out the contract that the Ancient One had signed with him. When Dr. Strange saw the Ancient One's signature, a trace of sadness flashed across his face, but he quickly hid it. "I see. Can we sign a contract with you then?" "Of course, no problem. How about I take you to see a dimension that's been destroyed?" Constantine suggested. "May I?" "Of course, call on the other mages as well." Dr. Strange then raised his hand, and a dazzling firework appeared. The sorcerers at the banquet who saw the firework began to gather towards Dr. Strange's location. Once they had gathered, Iron Man couldn't help but ask, "Strange, what are you doing?" Dr. Strange then told Iron Man about their plan to travel to a dimension that was about to be destroyed. After listening, Iron Man immediately asked, "Can we come along too?" Dr. Strange did not answer, but looked at Constantine. "Constantine, why don't you just pull the entire banquet hall into the dimension of destruction and give them a unique banquet?" "Good idea, boss, but we still need to ask for their opinions." "Let me ask for you," Iron Man said, then pressed a small button on his glasses, and his voice immediately came through the loudspeaker. The result was quite obvious. No one refused. So Constantine said nothing more, and slammed both palms down on the ground. Instantly, destructive energy surged out and enveloped the entire banquet hall. Everyone felt a tremor, and then everything calmed down. Holy crap, is this the point of dimensional destruction? Everyone looked up at the magnificent scene in the sky, where miniature purple galaxies floated above them, and tiny purple sprites drifted in the air. That's right, This is the Destroyer Dimension. Everyone, continue eating and drinking." The mages rushed over and signed a contract with Constantine, while some with a scientific spirit went outside to see the destructive energy. "Tony, where are your nanobots? Get them to set up some equipment right away. I only brought Edith to the banquet, so I can only do a superficial study. There's no way I can do any in-depth research," Iron Man said helplessly. "Let me do it." Rocket put his gun on the ground, then took out a wrench and fiddled with it for a while, but it was still missing a little bit of a part. "Sigh, we're still missing some parts," Rocket said helplessly. "Hey, where did these cat and mouse come from?" Iron Man suddenly said. Everyone turned around and found that Tom and Jerry had appeared behind them at some point. "This seems to be Mr. Lee's pet. It's quite powerful, even stronger than most of us," Dr. Green said. "Really?" Iron Man asked with a suspicious look. Tom pointed to the equipment Rocket was working on and then shouted, "You mean you can set up a lab for us, in exchange for a ton of dried fish and cheese?" The others couldn't understand what Tom was saying, but they could understand the meaning behind his voice. "All right, if you can really build us a lab, we'll prepare a ton of dried fish and cheese for you." Iron Man patted its little head and laughed. They initially thought it was a joke, but what happened next left them speechless. Tom and Jerry put on yellow plastic helmets, symbolizing workers, and began laying bricks at a speed visible to the naked eye. The speed was so fast that before they could even react, the main structure of a laboratory was completed. That wasn't all. The next second, Tom put on a welding mask, and the two kids started frantically welding something. Soon, experimental equipment appeared one after another. Finally, the two kids hung a big white plaster on the house, and that was the end of it. After doing all this, the two children gave each other a high five and a thumbs up. "Wow, does this thing even work?" Iron Man walked up to one of the machines, pressed the switch, and the screen actually lit up. The others also came to their respective familiar machines and began to operate them. The Rocket picked up a test tube and tried to collect some destructive energy, but once the destructive energy touched the inner wall of the test tube, it would directly erase the area it touched. There was nothing anyone could do but watch the destructive energy surging before them. At this moment, Iron Man seemed to have thought of something and asked Tom, "Can you help me collect them? I won't let you do it for nothing. I'll give you an extra ton of dried fish and cheese." Upon hearing this, Tom immediately jumped up, and a net appeared in his hand at some point, directly covering the destructive energy. Then, under the command of Iron Man and the others, the destructive energy was placed in mid-air. Only then did everyone begin to test the destructive energy. They quickly discovered that this energy was even more violent than the energy in the Power Stone, and its destructive power far exceeded that of the energy in the Power Stone. Even with the same amount of energy, the damage caused by the Power Gem is far less than the impact of the destructive energy. It's easy to imagine how powerful this destructive energy is. It's a pity that this energy is too unstable. Otherwise, they could use this destructive energy to create energy weapons. For one thing, its power would be enough to destroy any known matter. As soon as the group left the laboratory, it turned into bubbles and disappeared. Only then did everyone realize that the laboratory was not permanent, but that was enough. They returned to the banquet hall, where everyone had drunk quite a bit. Seeing this, Constantine used magic to bring everyone back to Earth. Looking at the white ceiling, everyone was still somewhat reluctant to leave, but there was nothing they could do. After all, Constantine wasn't from their world. Just as the event was ending, Walter handed out business cards to everyone present, saying that if they needed anything, they could simply drip a drop of blood on them and they could contact them to place a request. Everyone was aware of Li Qingyue's group's fighting strength, so they didn't refuse, since they could treat them as a trump card. After everyone left, Iron Man and Professor Hulk first gave Tom, Jerry, and Constantine their rewards, and then it was Li Qingyue's turn. Since they didn't know what to give him, after all, without their help, he probably would have snapped his fingers himself by now. In the end, Iron Man decided to give Li Qingyue the technology of the nanotech armor as his reward. After collecting their payment, the group returned to the Marvel Studios, only about a day after they left. "I'm so tired, I'm going back to rest first. You guys should go back and rest too. The firm will be closed for 3 days." Li Qingyue said, then had Walter put up the sign and handed over the nanotechnology to him before sending them away. Even Tom and Jerry were sent away, leaving only him and Jill to enjoy their time together. Everyone rested for 3 whole days. During these 3 days, even Walter didn't study any knowledge or research anything. He just ate and slept every day, except for Connor, of course. He was responsible for everyone's 3 meals a day and feeding the cats. He was the busiest person in the entire firm. If Walter hadn't hired someone to clean the place, Connor probably wouldn't have had much time to rest each day. However, Connor did not complain at all and worked hard every day. However, after the 3-day holiday, Walter, Richard, and Connor were brought to the agency, and Li Qingyue presented them with commissions from S.H.I.E.L.D., allowing each of them to choose one to work on. "Boss, aren't you going?" "You've already called me boss. Do you think I need to go?" "And you too, you should go too. Complete these assignments as soon as possible, then the firm will usher in an unprecedented upgrade," Li Qingyue said, grabbing Tom and Jerry. "An unprecedented upgrade?" "That's right, so all of you should work hard and try to complete the task as soon as possible. If you're not coming, fine, but why isn't Constantine here either?" Walter said, dissatisfied. "Because he has already done a lot of commissions before." "But you are right, go ask him. If he doesn't want to come, don't force him. You can choose one yourselves." "Hee, teacher, I'm still just a child. I need to go to school. Besides, I haven't been going to school much lately, and the school is starting to complain," Richard said, raising his hand with a fawning smile. "Humph, you really think I don't know? You've already learned all the university courses using NZT, so it doesn't matter whether you go to school or not, right? Hurry up and pick a job for me." Richard hung his head, then picked and chose, finally selecting a commission from China. This commission was quite interesting. It involved kidnapping a scientist and had to be done secretly, without being discovered by the Chinese authorities. Even if they were discovered, they would have to wait a week before they would find out. It should be noted that China is one of the most powerful countries in the world today, and it is also one of the permanent members of the Council of S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. does not want to have a conflict with them unless absolutely necessary, so they put this task in the commission. Li Qingyue glanced at it and then asked, "Are you sure you want this commission?" "Confirmed. With Constantine's help, it's very simple." "All right then, whatever you want." After everyone had made their choices, they went to Old Jack to upgrade their equipment, and then they each went off to carry out their respective missions. Looking at the deserted office, Li Qingyue lay down on the sofa. This kind of comfortable life was what he pursued. He fell asleep while lying there and didn't know how long he slept. When Li Qingyue woke up, he found that there were actually 2 people sitting in the office. "Vanessa, Constantine, what are you doing here?" Li Qingyue asked, squinting as he got up from the sofa. "Ed, he's not Constantine, he's my brother, John Wick. He's gotten himself into some trouble that even Wilson can't handle, so he had to come to you." "John Wick, Night Demon? You know me. I've heard of you. What trouble have you gotten yourself into?" Li Qingyue asked curiously. "A person was killed in a hotel in mainland China." "Understood. Can you contact the adjudicators and tell them that I've got your back?" Li Qingyue said arrogantly. "Are you sure this will really work?" John Wick asked. "Don't worry, it will definitely work." He nodded and left, contacting someone he knew on his phone as he left, asking them to contact the arbitrator. A moment later, a luxury car pulled up outside Kingpin's house, and a short-haired woman got out, holding a black and gold coin. When John Wick saw the coin, he knew the arbitrator had arrived. "John Wick, is there something you need from me?" the woman asked John Wick casually as she approached him, her expression haughty, as if he were not some fearsome demon but merely an ant that could be crushed at any moment. "Your Excellency, I think you already know about my situation. Now someone has asked me to pass on a message to you. He has vouched for me." The woman sneered and said, "John Wick, I don't know where you found this guy, so ignorant as to say such things. That person is right next door." After hearing this, the woman waved her cloak and swaggered toward the next room, but when she saw Li Qingyue, she froze. "Hello, I didn't expect to see you again so soon," Li Qingyue said with a smile. "It's you. What's your relationship with John Wick?" "He's my student's uncle, so it's okay for me to vouch for him, right?" "Sir, I know you are very powerful, but you can't push your luck. If everyone follows his example, then our rules will be meaningless. So even if it costs us an unbearable price, we will choose to go to war with you." "Don't get excited, don't get excited. Since you've put it that way, I'm not ungrateful. You can hunt him down for a week. If he dies within a week, it just means he wasn't strong enough. If he survives a week, then he'll have nothing to do with your mainland hotel anymore, and all grudges will vanish. How does that sound? I need to contact the Council of Elders." "And what about you, John Wick?" Li Qingyue asked, looking at John Wick beside him. "I have no problem, but you need to give me some time to prepare. Don't rush, let's see if they agree first." The arbitrator returned quickly and said, "All right, we agree. When shall we begin?" "It officially begins at midnight tonight, John Wick. You have 10 hours to start preparing." Oh, and if you need weapons or equipment, I'll give you an address. There's no weapon he can't provide. If you have enough money, he can even get you a nuclear bomb. With that, he handed over the location of Old Jack's general store to John Wick. Without wasting any words, he went straight back to Kingpin's house, took a bunch of money, and then went to Old Jack's general store to start picking out the weapons and ammunition that suited him, especially body armor, which was something he couldn't be careless about. At the same time, hotels and subordinate organizations across the continent received the news that John Wick's bounty had been raised to a staggering $50 million, enough to drive everyone crazy. Moreover, this bounty was an extremely rare countdown bounty. Now, assassins all over New York were sharpening their knives, waiting for the clock to strike at midnight for their hunt to begin. Bangladesh. Walter stepped off a bus, looking utterly dejected. The commission he received was actually quite simple. Strange energy fluctuations had suddenly appeared in the bamboo forest in Bangladesh, and Walter's commission was to find out what was going on with these strange energy fluctuations. Although Walter used his employee privileges to teleport to Bangladesh, he didn't teleport directly to the bamboo forest. He still needed to take a full day and night by bus to reach Bamboo Town, and then enter the bamboo forest from there. It's important to know that Bangladesh is one of the least developed countries, so although the roads are paved, they become full of potholes due to years of neglect. Plus, the bus driver had a strange habit of constantly slamming on the brakes, which meant the bus had to brake frequently. Or they would not slow down at all when going over potholes and would just rush over them, causing many passengers to be lifted into the air while they were fast asleep, and then fall heavily on their buttocks, causing the whole carriage to be filled with curses from the pain. After enduring such torment for a full 24 hours, Walter finally arrived in Bamboo County, now looking like a walking corpse. Fortunately, the cries of vendors nearby brought him back to his senses. He headed straight for the bamboo forest, looking at the map as he went. By using the latitude and longitude of the energy fluctuations, he determined his location and distance, and then began his journey. Meanwhile, somewhere in the bamboo forest, several hunters were carefully tracking their prey, a 500-kilogram wild boar. It's worth noting that ordinary wild boars only grow to 100 to 200 kilograms. A boar that reaches 500 kilograms is practically a king among wild boars. This wild boar king had only appeared a few times before it was targeted by someone. A wealthy man from Bangladesh offered 10 million taka, which is roughly equivalent to $100,000. This is considered an astronomical price in the local area. Therefore, many hunters in the vicinity decided to capture this wild boar king so that their families could live a wealthy life. However, this wild boar king had thick skin and flesh, and it often rolled in mud, getting covered in mud. After the mud dried, it formed layers of armor. In addition, the locals used either bows and arrows or firearms, which did not do much damage, so they had no way to hunt it. Instead, it killed more than a dozen hunters with its tusks. Gradually, the hunters in the vicinity dared not hunt it anymore, leaving only a few hunters who were determined to catch it. "Father, can we really catch this wild boar king?" A Bengal man who looked only 18 or 19 years old asked cautiously. "Monka, don't worry, we will definitely catch this boar king. With this boar king, you can go to school, and your sister won't have to marry someone she doesn't like." "Yes, father, we will definitely catch it." "Don't get excited," another hunter whispered. The father and son then shut their mouths. They followed the tracks of the wild boar king and soon arrived at a valley. This valley had only one entrance, but to be on the safe side, they did not enter. Instead, they climbed the steep mountain wall and came to the peaks surrounding the valley. Looking down from their vantage point, they saw a large herd of wild boars. Besides the king boar, there were more than a dozen adult boars, each weighing at least 200 kilograms. If they were truly provoked, even a pack of tigers would be no match for them. "What should we do next?" one of the hunters asked. "Isn't it more like I'd have you bring sleeping pills specifically for wild animals? Shoot a few pheasants, put the sleeping pills in them, and then throw them to us. Once the sleeping pills take effect, they'll be at our mercy," said the leader of the hunters. Everyone nodded, then a few people stayed behind to keep an eye on the boar king's movements, while the others went hunting nearby. As the gunshot rang out, the boar king shuddered, then stood up. Finding nothing amiss, it lay back down in the mud to sleep. The people in the valley breathed a sigh of relief, fearing that the wild boar king would run away upon hearing the gunshot. Not only the animals heard the gunshot, but Walter, who was on his way, also heard it. He immediately ran towards the source of the gunshot and saw the father and son hunting. Walter immediately hid himself and followed behind them. They quickly returned to the valley and threw the pheasant, which had been laced with a large amount of sleeping pills, into the valley. The wild boars, who were sleeping, were all awakened. Looking at the motionless pheasant carcass lying on the ground, they only touched it with their noses and did not bite it. It was not until the wild boar king came over and ate the pheasant carcass that the other pheasant carcasses were eaten by the wild boars. All right, now all we need to do is wait for the boar king to fall into a deep sleep. Who are you? What do you want to do to Lo Song? A boy dressed as a primitive man demanded, holding a stone spear. And who are you? A hunter asked impatiently, drawing his bowstring and aiming an arrow at the boy. The boy frowned slightly and said, "It seems you've also come to capture Lo Song. In that case, I can't let you leave." After saying that, the boy rolled away and disappeared into the jungle. The hunter wanted to chase after him, but was stopped by the leader. He looks like a hunter who lives in the forest all year round. This is his home turf. Don't be impulsive. But as soon as he finished speaking, a venomous snake appeared and bit the leader's ankle. The leader swung his machete in pain and cut the snake in half, but he also fell to the ground. Rustling. But this was just the beginning. As more and more sounds emerged, the group was horrified to discover that they were surrounded by a swarm of venomous snakes. They tried to escape, but they were unable to break free from the snake's encirclement and eventually all perished among them. Then the boy reappeared, glanced at the corpse with disgust, and ran towards the valley. Walter didn't want to get into trouble, so he opened the map and planned to run towards the mission location. However, he didn't expect that the mission location was actually in the valley in front of him, which made him very curious. So when Walter approached the center of the valley, he discovered that the boy in front of him had changed. He had grown downy hair, and his human features had turned into animal features. Lo Song, you shouldn't have gone out. Look what a mess you've caused as soon as you went out. It's also my fault for touching that crystal. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in this state now. Listening to the conversation between the man and the boar, Walter suddenly realized something, but he needed to confirm it. So he flashed behind the boy, and before the boar king could react, Walter put his knife to the boy's neck and said, "Don't move if you don't want to die." When the wild boar king saw that the boy was being held captive, it angrily kicked its hind legs backward repeatedly, as if gathering the strength to charge. "I know you can understand human speech. From now on, when I ask a question, you can only nod or shake your head. If you dare to do anything wrong, I promise I will kill this boy first, understand?" The boar king did not react, still staring intently at Walter. Seeing this, Walter increased the pressure on his hand and asked again, "Do you understand now?" The boar king nodded quickly upon seeing the blood on the boy's neck, and Walter smiled with satisfaction. "Did your mutation occur around 2 p.m. on March 25th? The wild boar king nodded. Seeing the boar king nod, Walter had already guessed what had happened. He said to the boar king, "Hand over the source of your mutation to me, and I will release the child." The boar king exchanged a glance with the boy, then turned and left. A short while later, the boar king emerged with a small piece of black crystal in its mouth. It threw the crystal on the ground, which Walter picked up, and then released the boy. Upon seeing this, the boar king immediately charged towards Walter, but Walter dodged him with a few sidesteps. By the time the boar king tried to call for his allies, Walter had already vanished. Phew, this request is relatively simple. All I need to do now is send the video to Coulson. With that, Walter vanished from the spot.